I am doing my visual essay on the Indian horse by Richard Wagamise. The thesis statement is Richard Wagamise's The Indian Horse shows how when many people come across defeat, they instantly give up. However, there are certain individuals who never give up and want to succeed. These types of people do not let anyone or anything interfere with their progress, as it is displayed through racism, integrity, and the value of nature. Subargument 1 is about racism. Racism can take many forms in a workplace, at sports, and schools, but some people do not realize that racism, such as stereotyping and prejudiced behavior, still exists in our society and people are dealing with it. An example is someone trying to play a sport and he/she has a different skin tone. Automatically, some people will think stereotypically, thinking, oh, he or she can't play the sport because they have a different skin tone. Point number one. The quote is, when I skated out at the tail end of our team, I could see people in the stands pointing at me and laughing. The Indian school brought their mascot. This picture represents the racism that the fans are showing towards the players. In the book, Saul deals with the comments shown by the racist fans and the opposing teams. Fans yell racial slurs towards him and have disrespectful signs. The quote signifies saying Indians shouldn't be playing hockey, which is not true these days. This shows that the fans think only white people own the sport and other cultures with different skin tones shouldn't play according to the book. This is an act of stereotyping because the fans act before they see what the players really got, as Saul in all the games is a superstar despite all the fans thinking negative about him. Point number two. The quote is, during one game, they broke into a ridiculous war chant whenever I stepped onto the ice. At another, the announcer played a sound clip from a cheap western over the PA. When I scored, the ice was littered with plastic Indian dolls. This image represents how Saul is being singled out from the other team and the fans. He is left out because he is an Indian playing a white sport. Saul receives racist comments, and even the announcer was taunting him by playing a clip from a cheap western. The fans also litter Indian dolls onto the ice, signifying his culture. This shows that most people get left out and called out as different due to their skin color. Point number three. The quote is, they called it a school, but it was never that. There were no grades or examinations. The only test was our ability to endure. This image clearly shows a man beating up an Indian person. This represents the brutality that residential school students face on a daily basis. This is showing how an Indian is getting beaten for doing something wrong. They get tortured by nuns to do certain tasks, some of which could be life-threatening, have fatal consequences. This shows how much residential schools are racist towards certain cultures, as most of the nuns in the book had something against the Ojibwe culture. Sub-argument 2 talks about integrity. Certain individuals display the act of integrity by being honest and selfless, by maintaining their stand regardless of what comes their way. Point number 1. The quote is, they look to more insult, name-calling, and swearing at me, even when they took to pushing me and tripping me and swiping me when I passed. I just level a blank look at the offender and keep in with the work. Despite the difficulties Saul faced, in the form of racist comments and rude treatment by others, he refused to react to it. Instead, he decided to focus on his goal. This image represents the struggle even with gravity, the slope, and the weight of the rock acting against him. The person still continues to push it up the slope. Saul displays integrity greatly because he didn't quit on playing. He kept on trying and didn't let anyone stop him. Even though he comes across a lot of racist fans while playing, he doesn't let that stop his progress. When some people face a lot of racism, they tend to stop so that they won't get intimidated by them. This shows the strong character that Saul has and he always finds a way to overcome the negativity. The quote for point number 2 is, there are times in this world when you have to look hard at yourself. The challenge you feel is the one that burns in your gut. I knew my team wanted me to buckle. They wanted me to bear my fights and fight. But I would not do that. I would not surrender my vision of the game. I would not let go of my dream of it. The freedom, the release it gave me, the joy the game gave me. It wasn't anybody else's game to take away from me. This image clearly represents how Saul constantly examines the potential consequences of his actions prior to reacting to any situation, event, or comment. He is strategic and doesn't allow his emotions to control his behavior and/or reactions towards others. For example, when the other team intentionally tries to initiate fights or to injure him, he does not respond similarly. Instead, he backs off to avoid any kind of confrontation and may cost his team penalties. Thus, he constantly weighs the right and wrongs that come his way prior to reacting. The quote for point number 3 is, they scooped out our insides, Saul. We are not responsible for that. We are not responsible for what happened to us. None of us are, Fred said. But our healing, that's up to us. That's what saved me, knowing it was my game. This picture shows what Fred Kelly went through and how he toughened up from what he dealt with. Saul met Fred Kelly when he had to move in with Fred's family so he can play for the Moose hockey team. He wanted to teach Saul to not blame himself for what he had to go through. Fred Kelly wants Saul to stop looking at the past and look ahead in the future. Saul has faced a lot of racism and abuse when he is playing hockey because he is Indian. He learns the truth that people don't want him to play hockey because it was considered a white sport. Saul had the choice of making the right decision of moving forward in life and looking at his future and what values that would hold. Sub-argument 3 explains the value of nature. The topic sentence is, the value of nature and its ability to assist in healing and replenishing the human mind is often underestimated, but it's clearly illustrated through Saul's experiences. Point number 1, the quote is, we will carry him to a high point and lay him in the breast of the earth, with his feet pointed easy, facing the morning sun. That way his spirit can follow the sun as it makes its journey across the sky and begin his spirit walk. This picture represents the place where the spirits of Benjamin, who is Saul's brother, is released. This came from nature and will eventually reintegrate by releasing the spirit into nature. This picture shows where and how Benjamin's body will be placed, facing the morning sun. His spirit will be taken by the sun and followed by it making its way to the sky. This will begin his spirit walk. The quote for point number 2 is, my thoughts cleared, I walked in a peace I could not recall having experienced before. Saul visits the place where Benjamin's spirits were released on to regain his inner strength. This place looks calm, and it looks like an ideal place for someone to think deeply, relax their mind, and think about their inner thoughts. Saul was dealing with a drinking problem near the end of the book, so he goes back to God's lakes to relax his mind. When he visits it, he aces his spirits and thinks deeply about what he is going through. This visit helped him relax his mind and revisit his past. Saul uses nature to replenish his mind and a way of escaping all the negativity surrounding him in the world. When he is in the nature, he does not have to deal with the sympathetic discrimination stemming from racism and its roots. The quote for point number 3 is, from there it seemed as though the entire world was a carpet of green pocked with bald gray places, where spires and shoulders of rock rose through the trees. This picture represents God's lake, where Saul and his family hide from the government men. This helps them because they don't get caught from them, and Saul lives. This shows that nature has a lot of value and is a way for Saul and his family to have protection. Saul says how this place where they are hiding is a safe haven that is covered by a carpet to shield others from coming and intruding. Conclusion. The theme statement is: many people come across defeat and instantly give up. However, there are certain individuals who never give up and want to succeed. These types of people do not let anyone or anything interfere with their progress. I feel this theme statement is true and is certainly displayed by a lot of people. The ability to persevere and never give up is such a key skill to have. If someone fails on a task, they shouldn't just say, I cannot do it, this is going to be too hard to finish. They should say, I can do it, and I will keep on trying and trying until I am successful. This is an important trait to have because in life, there are going to be tedious tasks in which you will fail. Not everyone will be successful on their first try. People should look up at Saul because he never gave up playing hockey, even though he went through a lot of racism. There will be doubters, obstacles, mistakes, but with the hard work shown, there are no limits.